Hello guys, today I'm gonna talk to you about Hans. Hans is my 1981 Mercedes SL. It is a 280 SL. It's the newer version of the older 280, so it's a 6-cylinder. It was a special order car, and somebody bought it in Europe when it was new. And they special ordered all kind of goodies in it. But today we're gonna work on the parking brake cable replacement. I was teaching my daughter how to drive, and at one stop sign, the parking brake just snapped. So since then it's broken, so now we're gonna fix it. Let's start with the library. We are in my man cave, and then we're gonna look at my library here and choose the 107 book. And the 107 catalog is a catalog came out of the German SL club, and if you haven't seen that before, maybe it's a really good idea to try to find it. Here's the article number. But this has everything for the SL or 107 SL, whatever you need. But even then, sometimes it's kind of confusing that what you actually need to buy for it. So what I would do if you don't really know what you need based on this book is to write an email to the Classic Center in California, and they're very helpful. They just get back to you right away and tell you what can you buy for that car and where can they find it. So my cable is coming right now, what I need from Germany, and it's gonna take 2 weeks to get here. So as you see, there were two different versions. This is the older version when you actually have a pedal like an American car, and then the newer version is where you have a handbrake handle. I don't have that version. That's like a later cars. Mine is a 1981. They made this car for a very long time. So anyhow, on that one, we got a main cable what comes down here to the distributor, and then you have one to the left of the car, one to the right of the car, and that's where it gets a little bit interesting, because based on the part numbers, if you look at it, it's 857 and 851, and if you find those numbers, see 851, 852, 853, 857, these are all parking brake cables for cable rear, cable left, cable right, and then these are all the stipulations, like from which part, which VIN number to which VIN number. It's very confusing. So Mercedes has a really nice database where they're following what they put in their car when they were manufacturing it. That's why the VIN number is very important. So if you send an email to the Classic Car Center in California, then they will get you the right part what your car needs. And then they were actually cheaper than Pelican parts. I couldn't believe it. And by the way, Pelican parts is a really good source for Mercedes parts as well. I really highly recommend them. So I find out what's wrong with it, but let's go outside and look at the car. Well, actually, before we do that, at the very front of the catalog, they're showing you that which cars. Mine is a 280 SL, and it starts with a 10741, but my car actually starts with a 42, my VIN number, so I'm not really sure why, but I do have the M110 engine in mine. And they're showing you the production numbers by year. So if you want to pause the video and find your car, maybe that would be interesting. But for my car, it was a 1981, and I cannot even see it. There is 81 and 280 SL. So they made 2,628 of my car in 1981. So I guess it's not all that particularly common, especially not with the manual shifter. All right, so let's go outside and look at the car. I have about 30 cars. I got all kind of things, from the Greyhound bus to the Model T, but I have two Mercedes-Benzes. One is that 240D over there, and I'm gonna work on that too. And the other one is Hans, is the 107 SL Mercedes. I put out a video every Friday. Sometimes I travel, sometimes go to museums, sometimes just fix stuff. If you guys interested, please look at my other videos. Over here you can see a couple Austin. Here is a Ford Fairlane, but Hans is on the surgical table right now. I really like this car. I got it in a very poor condition. Mechanically was bad, aesthetically was just the way it is. I drove it to work. I drove it across the country a few times. Now it's finally become a very reliable vehicle. And here's the mighty M110 engine, which I really enjoy having. I just had to just change the coolant in it, so that's why the coolant is overflown a little bit. It's actually supposed to be down here. and I'm gonna have to adjust that level. It's gonna self-adjust once I start the car. I fixed the AC on it too. With the York compressor, it takes a lot of effort to turn that York compressor, but that's what was in it, so I left it in it. And that fuel injection system works great. So nonetheless, let's look under the car. Let's start in the inside first. First, I removed the floor carpet. The floor carpet has two little buttons on it. The buttons are located here and here, which are little snap buttons. You just have to snap it up and it will come off. The other problem is you will have to work it over the gas pedal. So the gas pedal is a challenge. Mine, it was cut already, so it's easy to get it out. I don't know how original it's been, but the gas pedal could give you a little trouble getting that carpet out. There's this piece what you got to remove. It's got a few bolts in it. You can see it upside down. There's like a couple of them up there, one there, and then there's bottom couple of them down there. So once this one came off, then you can see it better. And now you're gonna concentrate on this piece over here. So remove the light. So there's one down there, one down in the very corner. Most likely gonna have a bunch of dirt on it and you're not gonna see it. It's a Phillips. And then one somewhere up there, and then one in the very left side of this one, and then the whole thing should come right out. So now that we remove that piece, you can see the cable is coming here and then goes up there. And then to remove the parking brake cable, you need to take this little piece off. And very confusing because it's not at the very bottom, because the piece what holding this cable in is actually turned downwards so that you can't move. That's welded to the whole structure. But here's that little piece what goes on top of it, and that's where you can pull it out with a screwdriver. Very easy. And then you can unhook it. You can see it from the side. How is the cable hooked in? And just unhook it, and then you can get the whole cable out from here. For some stupid reason, I thought this is where it snapped. And when I was looking at better, it's not here where it snapped. So I took all of these apart, so I figured I might just gonna make a video, so maybe gonna have someone who needs to change this piece. But that's not where the problem is, so I'm just gonna put it back together and go to the bottom of the car. Since I couldn't determine the proper number, I sent a message to the California Classic Bands Center, and they, based on my VIN number, figured out what kind of cable I need, and they had to order it from Germany, of course. As it turns out, the left and the right side is the same. This is for a 280 SL, not a 350 or any kind of larger car. So supposedly this one is the proper piece what I need. So to continue on, I put the car back on the lift and lift it up, put a jack stand underneath, and then we're gonna remove the wheel as the first step. Now that we remove the wheel, next thing I wanna do is remove the rotor. In order to remove the rotor, I need to remove this nice new brake caliper. It's two 90mm bolt on it. Be very careful when you reinstall it. Do not use one of these when you put it back on. The bolt can break off. Yeah, it happened to me on the front before, so it's not a fun thing to do. But when you're putting it on, these are brand new bolts, and they have a little bluish thread lock, so we're gonna have to reapply those when we put it back on. And as it comes off, we can just remove this thing and it comes off. Now the next thing is that you shouldn't let it hang with the hose, so we're gonna bring some wire and hang it up somewhere with the wire, so this hose will not gonna be the hanger for it. Now that we have the brake caliper hanging up there and removed, we can just take this thing off. And now we can see the parking brake assembly. Cable goes through this whole assembly with that one bolt holding it in. So I'm gonna remove that bolt, and also at the other end I got two nuts what I need to remove, so I can get access to the whole thing a little better. I couldn't find a better way to do this other than removing, but this is what you need to remove, this little clip here. And here's the broken part. That's the reason for the season. So if you have some sort of bent screwdriver or something, you probably can go in and pry this open. But for me, it was easier just to remove these two nuts. And then inside, you can see the other side of the cable there. I got to just remove that. And over here, I just pulled on the hose a little bit and I can expose the cable, and on the other side we can find where it is connected to and take that off. I totally thought that this thing gonna just come right out, but it didn't. If of course it's not, because it's a Mercedes. So there was the slot in there but was really closed in, so I had to open it up with a screwdriver, and now finally was able to remove this last piece. Now this thing is not the easiest thing to do. You're gonna have to remove one of the end of the springs what holding the two shoes together, and then you can take this assembly out, and there's the pin in it what can be removed. If it comes all the way out, here's the little pin. You remove this, put the new one on, put the new cable back on, and then the fun begins. You gotta put it back together, and that spring will be a little bit hard to make it hook into that hole in the shoe, but we'll make it happen. Well, idea was good, execution was almost good. Yeah, I'm almost there, but not quite yet. So I have this nice piece of thing from England, which is kind of failing because it's made out of a good material. The idea is really good behind it, but this part is very weak, so it pops out. But even then, it helped me enough to move the shoes apart, to first of all put the spring in, and then second of all to play this thing into position. So now as I'm gonna release this, it will actually gonna go sit on this extender, the mechanical extender what we were working on. So almost there, but not quite. Yeah, I forgot to tell you that I really did insert the cable into the right holes here on the lower arm to make sure I don't have to kink it to put it back into position. So now it's not connected at the very end, so it's still kind of loose, but it all goes through these holes but holding it in position, so I don't have to kink it. If I would put it in here, then I would have to kink it to make it go through here. So, well, almost there. Hard to believe, but it's actually clicked together. It's all good on both sides. So now I'm just gonna use the wire brush and wire brush the rust off of it with this, and then I'm gonna put a little bit of anti-seize on it from that to make sure the rust is not coming back, and then it will not freeze on it. Also, there is an adjustment on the top, which you can see it's very nicely a bunch of anti-seize on it because I just worked on that. So that I readjusted a little bit to make sure it's not tight but not loose either. So when I put this drum on, yeah, it just perfect. And just barely there, so it works very nicely. So now I'm gonna just finish that up and put the rotor back on. On the major discrepancy, this one has actually been dropped or something happened to it in its life, and there is a little bit of piece in it what sticks out, so this will misalign the rotor. So I'm gonna need to actually file this down, probably with an angle grinder, to make it flush, because this one is actually pulls the rotor away a little bit, so the rotor will always gonna do this very slightly. So I'm just gonna have to readjust that part. Well, the operation was successful and the patient is still alive. So it looks like it's deeper. This one is lower than this one, so you're gonna be able to line up very nicely. But if you look inside, you can see where it was. So up there, if I can do this with one hand, this is where it was not touching it, and the rest of the part it was touching it. So yeah, it's gonna be a lot better now. Anti-seize on. I've already brushed the inside of that drum as well, and I used compressed air to blow it all out, so it's ready to go back on. It's a lot easier if you put this bolt in, and you need a special wrench. I guess maybe you better use a wrench because the socket is not really liking its position here. And then I got these bolts. I got the thread lock on it from a blue container, and then I'm just gonna put those two bolts through. You need to wiggle it a little bit so it will go through those holes, and I'm gonna retighten those. This little adapter what holds that cable on looked a little bit rusted, so I just don't have the heart to put that back on like this. So I'm gonna use this rust converter treatment thingy, and then I'm gonna clean it with that before I put it on. I'm gonna let it cure before I screw it on. So I think I'm gonna keep this car for a while, so I'm gonna treat this before I put it back. I got this nicely connected, and now I just gonna have to hook this one in at the very far end and then put the 2 nuts on and then be done. Everything is on, wheel is on, brake first, great, mission accomplished. Thank you for watching. I hope it helped some of you who actually have one of these cars or just enjoyed watching how am I trying to make this happen. Well, see you guys next Friday. If you want to hang around, come back. Every Friday I put up something new, something different. Bye.